We started by looking at the global economy, and the view is that it's looking a little better than it was a year ago, especially the news in the United States. There's much better economic news coming through. Japan's Abenomics seems to be working so far. There are some signs of improvement in the EU, but it's still a very vulnerable situation. As far as the developed world is concerned, we think there's a better picture, although there may still be some downside risks. We looked at some of the surveys which have indicated that there are some of the vulnerable economies in the world. Morgan Stanley looked at 5 currencies that they thought were somewhat fragile. There was India, Brazil, Indonesia, South Africa, and Turkey. But relatively, we are not performing well in relation to our region and certain other of our competitors in the region. So if we look back, just to remind you where we've come from, just to remind you, we once grew at 5.5%, which shows it's possible, provided you deal with stress. 5% was before the global crisis and before the lights went out. We are now seeking to recover from that at the lower end. And our estimate for this year, on the back of the latest growth figures, is 1.8. It was 2%. I don't think that a percentage point is much between friends, but it's more the ballpark area in which we're now having to operate. This year, if you're just holding the growth rate as opposed to all others, that we think we are just under 2%. Next year, we think things hopefully will, on the conditions I've outlined, that there can be a bit of a rebound in the economy, getting back to, quote, normal, but allowing for certain other dynamics where we could be between 2.8 and 3%, and then in 2015 maybe between 3 and 3.5. And we see inflation is still hovering just below the upper end of the target range on the evidence we have presently at our disposal. And based on what we know now, we think it's like 2.8 or 3% growth for next year, and that's just a sort of way to sort of illustrate it. So finally, I think the message that came out of all Bruce's discussions is, here are pluses, here are minuses. Yes, things could look a little better next year in terms of the numbers, but really we need 2 things. We need to commit ourselves to doing much, much better after next year by taking the right decisions and above all implementing them.